Welcome to Blathering Backstage. I'm Ken Napzok. This is producer Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, how you doing, man? The world got you down yet?
The world always has me down, but it's these kinds of talks and discussions and venting sessions with you and our community, Ken, that make it all a little bit better.
Hey, we love a good vent. This is kind of a podcasty version, he said as an announcer, where we just hang and talk about things that maybe come up on the show, the Blathering Live, or actually maybe things that didn't. We were maybe going to talk about this Thursday, the issue of 60 Minutes, Scott Pelley, Barry Weiss, Skydance, the whole thing. Tony Capoli's his name, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah. There was a local news anchor in my hometown. He was a reporter and became news anchor named Tony Capola. And I'm just now I just think it's him. And it's not. He was a nice guy. We're going to talk about that. And it's a chance to just kind of have a little lo-fi conversation about the stuff. And also, this episode is brought to you by my friend DJ Bruja and her music, Break Freeze, her new single. Darina's got some great music already out and more on the way. So head on over to where you get music and support. Also, check out her Bandcamp page so that you can support an artist directly. And while you're there, I have some music with the Moon Agers that's on there as well. I have some music. Steve, do you want to hear me sing one day?
Not particularly, but I'll listen to someone sing the words that you wrote.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. That's the right answer. Yeah, so we got the 60-minute stuff that seems to be coming to a head. And Scott Pelley, who's one of the veterans, of course, to me, he's still a rookie. I'm like a Morley Safer 60 Minutes guy, right? Where's Andy Rooney? He's one of the faces of it, and 60 Minutes has been on since the dawn of time. And is it still going into this mess? Was it still the standard bearer of news journalism on the television?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, as someone who is a journalism nerd, studied the stuff, I don't know if anyone under the age of 30 is going to have any idea of anything that we're talking about in this one, Ken. Brady's probably thinking to himself out there somewhere, what the hell is 60 Minutes? But yes, once upon a time, and even to this day, Ken, 60 Minutes was the standard bearer for long-form news journalism in this country, presented on the television in an accessible way to the masses. So many childhood memories were finishing up dinner and hearing that tick 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 tick, like, or listening to Jim Nance, tell me at the end of a CBS broadcast,
yes.
Blah 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 is coming up, and at the end 60 Minutes, and then hearing the little preview. It's how we got the news of the world into our living rooms before social media, and we were online all the time, staring at our screens and kind of getting our own corner of the news back when broadcast journalism had that somewhat of a objective goal.
Yeah, my grandpa would argue no. And when we trusted our newsmen, which were mostly back then just newsmen, but we'll talk about that. But you're also the nostalgia of hearing a football announcer go, "All right, Brady is about to take a knee here. We're done. Don't forget tonight in 60 Minutes." Did Ronald Reagan? It's
exactly
burned into my soul. Burning tonight on 60 Minutes. Are slides hurting children? We'll find out. So my overall question, so I have been tangentially aware of what's been going on at CBS, the Skydance, Paramount stuff. That ain't good. Barry Weiss is installed as kind of the head of CBS News. That ain't good. But also the reason I'm coming to you today, because you had some thoughts on this. You did go to school for journalism. You are a journalism nerd. I was a local news nerd. I loved the local news drama and staff and everything, but I wouldn't call myself a journalism nerd. And I guess the overall question is, Scott Pelley's fired. Megyn Kelly says he was a prick. So, there's that take. And I'm asking, why should we care in a very sincere way, knowing kind of why we should? But there's so many things going on in the world that this corner of it has not been something I paid attention to, other than when you scroll through a hot take on Threads. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm almost glad that you brought up Megyn Kelly, in that, it doesn't really matter that he's a prick, even if he was a prick. Here's a funny little secret: a lot of news people are pricks, because in order to kind of do that job, you sort of have to have a really thick skin, and that kind of just outwardly makes you defensive and come off like a prick. Like I've like, you know, having done internships in newsrooms and stuff and doing some of that in my early career, like, yeah, I kind of see where that comes from. But anyways, even if he is a prick, 60 Minutes, whether you like CBS or not, up until the Larry Ellison Skydance, kind of all the drama with that, and we'll talk about kind of, I'll mention kind of how we got to Scott Pelley getting fired in a second. But
Yeah.
regardless of how you think about those things, the Fourth Estate is an important institution culturally in this country. Ken, this is one of the things that for 250 years has, God, I'm on a soapbox, has
I put you on it. I grabbed you like
I know.
a little. Get on your soapbox. But this means a lot to you because you studied this, and I could say, you know, the death of journalism is a bad thing. I don't really know what that means because my interest and focus is in other areas.
Right. Well, let me tell you what that means and why it's important. And I don't want to. Let me be very clear. Journalists aren't curing cancer, but the importance of what they do has been so diminished, not just because everyone has access to a microphone and can put out their own information, but because the collective psyche and the collective standard for news, quote unquote, or for information that they use to make decisions has been lowered so much for a myriad of reasons, whether it's the tribalism of politics or the instant gratification of I want things that are going to give me feel good stuff right now because of how crappy the rest of the world is, whatever it may be. The way we consume information has changed. And with that, the standard institutions of news haven't necessarily kept up in the way that they kind of led the way in the last communication revolution. Right. When we looked at radio into television, moving away from print as like these dominant forms of mass communication, news media really is what drove that. Right. Wartime media is what put television in front of people's homes and got us hooked to the TVs before entertainment did, in a sense. And then, you know, during the cable news era, we saw the Ted Turners of the world and all these big corporations make news into, like, we saw the combination of news and entertainment together, and boom, we have this little baby called cable news, Ken.
Right.
And 24/7, and people making careers of being talking heads on TV that are talking about, here's what you should think about the news, not here's the news. Right. Like, you know, I had a lot of journalism professors tell me back in the day, like, a lot of what we do, quote unquote, is math. Okay. This happened. It caused this to happen, and therefore this is the result. Now, while we're using words to talk about that, at the end of the day, it really is a math equation. 2 + 2 = 4. The house burned down because it was lit on fire. Okay. That's not really what we're seeing in the news anymore as a result of consumption habits and all the stuff we just talked about. And the erosion of 60 Minutes, the Paramount CBS drama it's not a final nail in the coffin, but it is a huge canary in the coal mine of if 60 Minutes can't withstand this, what can?
Right. Yeah, all making sense thus far. And, you know, and for not even the other side's sake or any naysayers, but, you know, I've grown up with the around folks who, you know, NBC News, CBS, ABC, you know, they're all show. You got to watch McNeil Lair on PBS, and because they're talking about arithmetic. The rest are, and looking back, that might have been some truth to it. Who knows? But it's the cable news network era has absolutely changed it. And you and I talked about the sports talkification of everything. That episode's up. June Lee has a great episode on his YouTube channel about that. It's only just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And I guess we eat it up. That's why it becomes so popular. 2 + 2 = 4 is boring versus 2 + 2 = 4. But is that what you want?
Exactly. Yes, you're 100% right. It's the exact reason why people complain that all ESPN talks about is LeBron James, the Cowboys, and whatever else. But it's because that's what gets numbers. That's what people get. That's what people want to talk about and yell about. Yes, you're right. 2 + 2 = 4 is boring. And I'm not saying it's the news's job to make it entertaining. I'm not saying that either. Yeah. No. But I think what the public collective has forgotten, and I think what the entertainmentization, the commoditization of modern news has made it so that if you don't have some sensationalist angle, if you don't have that selling point, if you it's not seen as the public utility that it used to be, right?
Right.
Like at the end of the day, like, you know, everyone in journalism school will tell you, like, yes, we went to journalism school to learn how to write stories and stuff. Journalism school is basically half law, half politics, as far as like what you're learning the whole time, right? Like maybe 1 year is spent on like, oh, here's how to like do stuff in Photoshop, and here's how to record stuff in Audacity, and shit like that, right? The rest of it's like media law, political law, like learning about the reason why we do this shit is so that our electorate isn't complete morons and elects, you know, Biff Tannen as president. So, I'm sorry that we failed, but again, that is just another collective response to that.
I like the way you talk about it as a, you know, like a what do you say, public commodity, like a like, you know,
it's a public utility. Like utility. The idea of news information is like, you need this stuff so that we can have a functioning democracy. Was it Nixon with the kind of, I'm paraphrasing, during the Vietnam era of, if I've lost Cronkite, I've lost them all. Like that. That's what I think about. And we all and the youngins. I know I didn't really grow up with Cronkite as the lead every night. He was already an elder statesman who was brought in to do special things. But yeah, I that has all changed. We don't trust our systems, and you know, we don't trust our sports stars. We know the truth about that. We know everything about everyone. And so I think that's going to erode the trust in a lot of things that used to be standards. I don't know if we'll ever return to Cronkite is the pulse of it's impossible to go back. You're not talking about that. But that's part of the slide to me, is now there's that underlying, you can't trust them. That's how I think, you know, obviously it's part of the authoritarian playbook. It's part of the fascist playbook, but that's absolutely what Trump did. The war on truth. The you can't trust anything, and why could you? The lamestream media, all that stuff, and it worked, and now to come to this point where, just as a TV history fan, I'm like, 60 Minutes might go away, you know, and I know that's not the case yet, but like, that's not more. It's more than a trivia answer, as you said. It's a canary in the coal mine. I'm not getting on a soapbox. I'm trying to trip on yours, but continue. No, it's you're right though. It's that I don't think we're going to go back to a time where we have a trusted newsman that everyone sits down to watch at 7:00 p.m. and just assumes, doesn't even question whether or not it's like legit or anything.
Right.
You know, maybe slanted or angled one way or the other, the quote unquote liberal media, which don't get me on that one. Look at who owns every single fucking one of these media corporations and tell me it's the liberal media.
But I wouldn't mind talking about that for a second. Do I trip you up? Should we come back to that, or am I tripping you up?
Sure, I got you. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a thing that went viral at the time of us recording today. There was everything just bombards our face. TikTok reels, whatever it is, YouTube shorts, and people text you stuff all the time, and I forget to save it. But there was a researcher who was like reacting or stitching someone's comments of, you know, it's hard when you try to research an issue, there's such a liberal bias, and she was a conservative person saying it. And he was like, no, your research doesn't do that. Research is here's the answer, right? And if it continues to look like your conservative lean isn't there, like, you got to focus on 2 + 2 = 4.
Right. Yeah. 2 + 2 = 4, Ken. And it doesn't mean it's liberal. It doesn't mean that it's liberal to say 2 + 2 = 4. The difference is that liberals believe 2 + 2 = 4 because when they look at it in front of them, it means what it means. Conservatives will tell you 2 + 2 = 4 because they've collectively decided 2 + 2 = 4. If they collectively decide 2 + 2 = 5, they will bend over backwards to tell you 2 + 2 = 5.
Yeah, and I think, to me, you know, I'm not a news history expert either, but I do think the Cronkite, the Vietnam, the Dan Rather, the summer of '68, when the news was reporting what was happening, and it started to change the narrative of those in power, which at the time was Nixon, and even, you know, Lyndon B. Johnson didn't have a great handle on Vietnam either. Let's be clear. But I think by the time 68 to 72, that range, you know, that is when, like, you know, we're hiding. The news is finding the stuff we're hiding, and how dare they, because of their liberal bias. And I'm summarizing it way too general, I know, but you know what I mean. And that, to me, starts or continues and pushes the conservative war on the truth even
Right.
further for me.
And
for my
the
opinion.
liberal bias isn't even it's not even necessarily even that out front. A lot of it's a matter of it's a matter of national security. We can't have these kinds of things reported on,
Right.
or we can't, you
Sure.
know what I mean? There was a lot of that. That's what a lot of we've seen a lot of. We've seen administrations on both sides say a lot of that. I mean, Obama's
Yeah.
administrations were absolutely guilty of that with all the whistleblower stuff that was going on during those
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
As far as saying, this is a matter of national security. That's why it's not classified. Blah 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 blah. Even though it was like, oh hey, we're tapping everything that can be tapped. So yeah,
Correct.
but and honestly, that's kind of back when that's a little bit after when I kind of got interested in all this kind of stuff, because that was a very interesting time to be in journalism school, kind of just before the Snowden stuff blew up and going through kind of the first kind of opening bits of disclosure of, what did we really sign up for in the Patriot Act and all this kind of stuff where we, but now you go and you look at that and it's, we're kind of right back to like that post 9/11. Two big points. If you don't have anything to hide, why are you worried? And the Patriot Act kind of like mentality of, oh well, would you rather Iran have a nuclear bomb? Like you got to give up your, if Trump knows what you're Googling kind of thing.
I am right now. I started a book and I got distracted and couldn't finish it, so I started rereading it, called Reign of Terror, which is literally how post 9/11 world led to Trump. And it actually starts with the Oklahoma City bombing, Timothy McVeigh, the very racist militia that was a religious-based militia that he was a part of that wasn't reported on a lot, 93, and the connections to Wake, all that stuff. It starts with racism, which can be stoked for fears, which turns into I'm right in the chapter about the Patriot Act. I feel like a kid who's like doing homework and Professor Steve just said what I studied last night. And it's scary.
It's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like you're pointing at the TV like that.
Yeah. It wasn't good. Turns out it was a way to get power, and it was racist and Islamophobic and the like.
But they call it the Patriot Act, Ken. If you went against the Patriot Act, you were a commie bastard.
Just got to the freedom fries section too.
Nice. Yeah.
That was our first clue. We were in the wrong. That and Kid Rock rising to power back then. But anyways, I digress. Back to Cronkite.
Yeah, back to Cronkite. No, I think you're right in that we won't have. I grew up on Brokaw, by the way. That was my newsman of sitting down at dinner time and the person who he spoke, and I was like, I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to sit in front of the TV and tell people what happened. Yeah, during the day, and that's what I do now, Ken. So I apprappreciate that. Yeah. It's not about the news, but we talk about other important things.
Well, we can create the Blathering News Hour spinoff channel. If someone out there wants to give us a grant, like $1 million of capital, we're listening. We'll launch all of it.
PBS needs the help. No, but I think what we will see going forward is, and I have to believe this, and I'm holding on to this hope for a couple of reasons, because I saw I saw a little bit of it when I was in school and when I was early on in my career. Like, I think there is a generation of journalists in this field that are coming up that are, not the Barry Weisses. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit, I'm younger than Barry Weiss, but like that's still kind of like generationally, like professionally, we're closer. And so there is a really strong cohort of progressive news people, whether those are producers, writers, that want to get to the bottom of stories that were like energized by the reaction to the Tea Party in the early 2010s and the explosion of social media in news. And there's people that have really, really good ideas, and we're starting to see some of the cracks of that be coming into fruition now with the rise of more independent journalism type things. And so I do think we're going to see some of that, like those cottage journalism sites kind of grow up as generations and young people grow up with the idea of, oh, CNN and Fox News is for old people and you can't trust them. And the network stuff is like, that's for like my great grandparents. Like nobody watches that, because things like CBS are dying, and those standards, it doesn't matter that it's there, then that you have watch Anderson Cooper or Scott Pelley, whoever it is. The fact is that like, it's a pillar of an industry that like, it set a standard. It made it so that like, with that gone, it's like a levee breaking in a sense. Is God, his heart is like heart bleeding, throbbing. That sounds like, I want to hit myself, but it really is in that sense. Like it's sad, man. And I wasn't even like the biggest 60 Minutes fan in the world, but it was a it was a respected institution, and what they did to Scott Pelley, what they did to longtime producers and editors in chief of the show, the way they did it, how Paramount, Ellison, Barry Weiss are making changes to the newsroom at CBS. Like, propaganda isn't the best way to put it, because propaganda is a little bit of a loaded term, I think, nowadays, in the same way communism is a loaded term, or socialism a loaded term, or capitalism is a loaded term. I think propaganda is a little bit of a loaded term. I think state media is a little bit of a loaded term. You sound like a conspiracy theorist if you use the word state media. But what I think we're seeing is, I think we're seeing party politics flow into news, and the corporatism of news. Like, this is the end game of news corporatism is what we're seeing. This is late stage corporatism in the news world. And it's not that the lines are getting blurred between news and entertainment. The line is getting blurred between news, like what actually happened, and what a special interest wants you to know based on based on what you have access to. It's not even so much like they're lying to you. It's that, Ken, do you have the subscription to Paramount Plus? Because if you don't, then maybe you shouldn't get 60 Minutes and all the news. And that has a huge domino effect, because now if news is commodified, if information is commodified, our electoral process they've added a poll tax essentially on the information we need to be an informed electorate. Do you see how I make that all came full circle? I'm actually really proud of myself for how I nailed that.
That's great. And I'm excited to hear that point, because that's one of, we can say, controlling the media is a tool of fascism. And that sounds great as a dumb guy at the end of the bar. But what you're describing too is also just the system that's currently created, or that's being continued to be built, I should say, of I click on a article and, I'd like to read that article. That seems to have important information. To finish the article, I need a $2 subscription. I'm not doing that. I don't have access to it. I don't have Paramount Plus, so I can't get to. So what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is the information we need to make informed decisions, which has always been a little hard to get, or hard to understand for some people, I would say, is now almost becoming impossible and not looked at, as you said, a public utility. The news of the world should be a public utility, is my takeaway.
Yes, 100%. I think that is the takeaway from all of this, and the whole 60 Minutes drama, the Scott Pelley drama, why does all this matter? Why does it care?
Matter? Yeah.
You should care because this information should be a public utility the same way that your power is, that your water is, hopefully, dear God, that your internet is one day, assuming we actually get the infrastructure for it and it's actually good, right?
Yeah.
But because of that very reason, right? Take the biases out of it. Take what you agree or disagree out of it. Again, back in the days, right, when in the colonial times, whatever, when this country was being formed, the printing press was a big deal, and newspapers and everything was the main source of mass communication. But the town square was a real thing. People gathered physically because the communities were so much smaller, and because the way of life was different, and that we had to congregate for to trade things and shit. The way that we passed information back then was different, and because we are so separated now, and because we can commodify that information now, if you make it so that if you're poor, you can't educate yourself on what to vote for, that sounds like one party's wet dream right now. I'm just saying. If they could choose, if they can't choose who can vote, they can at least choose who has access to the information on which way they would vote.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we should have a government state-run media that pledges. That's not what I don't want anyone to take that away.
No, that is not the answer.
That's not what I'm talking about. But just and newspapers might have always cost $1.50, but it's hard to find. It's hard to find the answers. It's hard to get a good opinion, and that's just where we are. That's the sports talkification of things, and it's. And we're never going to take the microphones back from everyday people, but like you see with that Nick Shirley character, a polite way to put it, who just with bad ethics and bad reporting and shady editing makes it seem pretty convincing that they're doing something behind those doors in a Minnesotan daycare center. That fraud is real, and I've had that parroted to me by so many people, and that's another danger too. That's why we need a trusted source, I would think. We need our
right.
We need Pelley.
And we haven't even started to talk about how, oh, I don't know, there's this little thing called AI that is completely changing what people even just see as real. And now can you even believe what you see in front of you as far as video or evidence of things? Like, that's another reason why you need a trusted, trained, news culture to be able to say, hey, this is real, this isn't, so that when grandma gets forwarded, a video of Trump throwing Kamala Harris into a dumpster, she knows, oh, maybe that didn't actually happen.
Right. Or, are you okay? LA's on fire. What are you talking about? I just saw a picture that people are running out of downtown LA. No, that's AI, Mom. It's AI.
Right. Or the aliens in Pasadena. Who knows?
I mean, it's a fact. I think I pulled you in a lot of different directions. I want to make sure your point is clear, and I am the dumb guy at the end of the bar asking questions and all that stuff, or just talking about this stuff. But going back to like the 60 minutes of it all, Scott Pelley, what really happened? This all happened at the time of our recording. It's happened the last couple of days. Barry Weiss has been in power since last year. She names Nick Bilton, who's a technology columnist for the Times and a filmmaker. He replaced Tanya Simon as the show, 60 Minutes, as the show's executive producer. The first staff meeting he has, Scott Pelley basically is like, what the hell, man? What the hell's going on? And he gets fired. They're right to do it, blah, 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 blah. But it's described as an explosive staff meeting because they're murdering 60 Minutes is Pelley's take. Let's get back to the central point of this conversation. Why does this matter to you? Why is it concerning? You've said so many great things, but
no, this matters to me because what we've seen with we've seen the administration put, again, this is all conjecture, but this is the evidence in front of our eyes. The administration has put pressure on Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison has put pressure on his corporate interests. Those corporate interests have controlling power of CBS, whether it's Skydance, Paramount, what have you. And they have, and the hiring of Barry Weiss and the turnover at CBS News, which has historically, you say what you want about the three-letter networks, they have all done historically a decent job of having those news divisions separate from their corporate entities as much as possible, because that used to matter. Like, people in old white dudes in suits used to care about that stuff. I know it's hard to believe, but they used to really care. Like nowadays, if you had a movie about, all the president's men or whatever, like no one would give a shit. But they used to care about this stuff. Yeah. So this is the erosion of that. This is like what I was talking about before, like the news division getting kind of corporatized into the larger entity. And that is these companies never looked at their news divisions as money makers. They were there as part of the public good. They were there as people trusted the CBS brand of entertainment because they trusted Scott Pelley and 60 Minutes and those legacy brands that built up the public trust and the public interest. That's why the network existed the way it is, because it was built on the backs of the news existing, of those productions. So with the erosion of that whole staff, really, and Scott Pelley leaving, that's the quarterback of the football team, like, throwing his drink on the head coach and saying, F you, you just fired my entire offensive line because you didn't like them.
But a couple of the big players stayed, which is interesting, which is not undercutting anything you're saying or anything Pelley did. I thought that was surprising. Leslie Stahl, who's been there since I was a kid, Bill Whitaker and John Wortham they stayed. Saying, well, we're frustrated, but let's see if he can keep his word. So good luck with that. But anyways, side note, I was just reading that in the article, and I was surprised to see Leslie Stahl stayed. But
well, I mean, if I'm Leslie Stahl, no offense to Leslie Stahl, but like you said, she's been doing it since you were a kid. What is Leslie Stahl's next move? You know what I mean? It's either
start
Leslie
a YouTube channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, she's gonna shack up with Megyn Kelly on a talk show.
Do you mentioned a little bit with the change and I don't think the newstainment thing and the editorializing and the sports talk radio of it all, I don't know if it'll ever go away. Because again, McNeil Lair on PBS was, the least watched thing in the history of like news television, though they were what they were and had a reputation that was good. But when I look at some of the folks that have been fired for whatever reasons over the last couple of years, going back to Trump's first administration, and they moved to YouTube. The rise of networks on YouTube. I don't trust all of them. I don't like all of them. Young Turks, whatever you got, but the Bulwark, Midas Touch. I'm not here to defend all of them, but they seem to have become not the standard, but where people are turning to. And again, I bring up the Nick Shirley thing because, who's holding that? Who's holding these entities to a standard other than themselves? Not the public. You know what I mean by that? But it just seems like that. It's sound like a boomer. Turns out the internet might be the wave of the future.
Right. Well, the Bulwarks, the New Republics, these online houses that are all just like media publications where you might have to pay a few dollars to have the full story, but that is the way of the future, and that we're going to see how. Are those just going to be other versions of the tribalism, right? Because I think we see some of those, like the Breitbarts and things like that. Like you definitely see corners of these things, right?
Yes.
And then I'm not trying to sound like a centrist, but there is because I know a lot of progressive leaders got killed in the last few weeks for not killed, but were crushed for
I was like, what did I
want to have a strong.
Something?
I know. I'm sorry. Bad wording. A lot of progressive leaders were getting flack for saying that the country is better with a strong Republican Party, right? And all of this kind of stuff, and getting hit with a lot of these centrism claims of like, well, no, that's just stupid. While I don't necessarily agree with that claim, I think it's important that you have objective news that is very much not trying to show a slant left or right, because again, 2 + 2 = 4. Mm-hmm. I don't have to give you a slant if I have the facts, right? There's the whole, don't, pound the facts, pound the table, all that shit. Mm-hmm. So that's really honestly the way I see it. So I think the public is going to grade those guys on the very fine line between how much they care about them being right and how much they agree with what they're saying, and is what they're saying making them feel good. You know what I mean? I'm yet to kind of find that actual entity in the middle that people are showing credibility to. It's really just degrees of left and right and getting closer to the center. But I mean, honest to God, I will still say the best place you can get your news is either your local news stations or honestly places that aren't U.S. cable news. Like, I mean, I like the BBC, I like Reuters, I like Associated Press, things like that.
It's funny. Yeah, you say that. There's a lot of thoughts coming to my head here, but a lot of times if there's a big story over here, I will go on YouTube and make sure I find like BBC or James O'Brien or someone else over there on the outside looking in.
Right. And again, that's exactly the perspective, Ken. Thank you for saying that, because that third person perspective, the outside perspective looking in is again, one of those things we're taught. And it's not because like, oh, America bad, and just to say BBC is infallible or anything like that. It's the idea of it is really important that we understand the different angles of these things from how people are seeing them. Not that there's two sides to the story. Right. That is a way overblown thing, and I actually really hate that. Or like the fair and balanced kind of shit. Like that was a marketing gimmick. It's because like shit either happened or it didn't.
Right. And
how you feel about it's one thing, but it either happened or it didn't. And so that's why it's interesting to get that other perspective, because they don't have that kind of skin in the game. There isn't that inherent bias. You might get a little bit more of the 2 + 2 = 4, as boring as it is.
Mm-hmm. No, fascinating stuff. No. And I know where you are. You're trying to thread a needle here and not be a centrist, but I know what you mean about the wanting the truth no matter what, even if it's hard to face and it's always complicated and all that good stuff. But it's like, I think, there's sometimes in the conversations we get to in our own lives that are divided between red and blue, there's sometimes this assumption on with us on the blue that we are blindly allegiant to everyone, and I'm like, oh no, we're over in this tent screaming at each other. What are you talking about?
The shit out of
what
each
are you
other.
talking
Right,
about?
exactly.
Like look at the debate over Graham Plattner right now. Look at I went to a Bulwark Live event for work and I had a good time, and I agree with a lot of things they said. I don't agree with all the things they said. I think they're entertaining. I think they're a YouTube channel and a brand. But some people, why you going there? Like, it's our tent fights. But you know what I mean? Of just like, if 2 + 2 = 4 and we see it, and maybe we see it later on, you have to face some truths, pretty clear truths of Clinton or Obama, Biden, or Jimmy Carter. You go on and on. Kennedy. I think I think we would have gotten out of Vietnam, but he also got us into Vietnam in a way. All those kind of things. Blah 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 blah. That's why I valued the 2 + 2 = 4 thing. Try to at least.
Yes, it's hard, and it's an easy soapboxy thing to say, but until we get a better crop of candidates in front of us, like I'm a big believer, Ken, that we got to play the game that's in front of us. You have to play the hand you're dealt. You got to play the game that's in front of you, because if you don't, the other side is, and no matter how principled and on your business you are, you can't do any of that shit if you're perpetually losing and you don't have a voice. And in order to have a voice, you have to play the game. And sometimes what does that mean to win the game? I don't know. It changes every election cycle. I just hope in 5 months or whatever it is that we vote, that we're still playing the same game that we do for the last 250 years, and that the elections are still, legit, which is crazy. We shouldn't have to have that fear or question in this country. That's what it all comes back to. Because if we had respected news that people still trusted, that the administration trusted, that our pillars of communication upheld, I think in a sane world, in the world that at least I grew up in on the West Wing, they would be screaming about this from the rooftop. Like, we have a new career-ending scandal in this administration every single week,
right?
And I totally believe that the entire fourth estate in this country is 100% guilty of not sounding the alarm loud enough in all directions. We have treated the entire situation with kid gloves. They have treated the entire situation as a cow to milk for cash, and it has made a lot of people very, very rich.
Yes.
But I think we're going to go back and look at this in 30 years and say, this was so obviously ridiculous. The fact that we weren't screaming from the rooftops, 5-alarm fire from the very beginning, I think is going to be studied for a long time.
When you count that beginning, just 14, 15, 16, 2000, 2001. I mean,
the Tea Party. I think it's the Tea Party. I honestly, my whole thing, dude, is I mean, again, the most basic thing is I think Obama got elected and it broke 30% of this country's brain. And I just don't think we've recovered from that.
Yeah. This is why I mentioned 2000. The contested election was fun SNL content. I was just watching the SNL Network's recap of season 26, and that was the year. And I'm like, I love that. I have great memories of all the sketches and stuff, and Will Ferrell playing Bush. But then you go back and look at the actual history of what happened and how that election was essentially stolen, and the Supreme Court justices 5-4 stopping it. You're just like, things stopped being normal then, and things never were normal. But this goes back to what I was trying to say. My words are dumber than yours, but the Vietnam thing, or about liberal media, or about history. We got to tell the right, conservative, real history. History is history, and when you look at it, and if you look at it and think, well, that has a liberal bias, your bias is showing on the other side, right? So if Rather and Cronkite and all these people go to Vietnam, and the Korean War happened, and we have veterans and people lost in that life, let's be clear. But post World War II, flags waving, we won, the world is ours. Here we go, Vietnam. Bum, 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 we're gonna go in there. Fuck, it's not. We're lying about it. The Gulf of Tonkin. We're lying, and then suddenly the news people are like, oh, this is different. We wouldn't we wouldn't hide the fact that FDR couldn't stand in this environment. Like we got to report on what's actually happening in Vietnam, and then if that causes reactions, and the Republicans in power are like, goddamn liberal media, and it's like, no, they're going to Vietnam and going 2 + 2 = 4. Do you see this? Do you see this? Do you see my point? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's the idea that it's the idea that you can still tell the story without you can tell the story without having it be being perceived as one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's just if the audience is not perceptive to that at all, it's like you're talking to a wall. And since you're exactly right, since 2000, since that Supreme Court decision, the one side of the aisle has succeeded incredibly well at, like, that was the crack in the door. Like at that point, they cracked the door open, and they were like, okay, we can we can really turn the Fox News kind of machine into overdrive. 9/11 was a weird kind of unforeseen
I know what you mean. It was this
part of that.
Yeah, it
But
was. I don't want to say it's a great opportunity. It was this obviously what it was, horrific tragedy that I still think about and watch documentaries about every year. But that's why I bring up goddamn freedom fries.
yep, yeah,
That was no longer normal, right? That was
Right.
no longer normal.
right.
That's when it
And
switched.
yeah, and so that gave it so much steam. And then again, I think 2008 to 2012, the rise of the Tea Party, the masks coming off a little bit, where people weren't afraid to say why they believed in certain conservative values that people were afraid to kind of say out loud before.
Yeah.
And then that's what directly gave rise to Trumpism in 2016, where it was, we're going to say it loud and proud, you can't cancel us and all that kind of stuff.
This is why I love reading some of the books. I always talk about this, and it's the starting point is from my own ignorance, right? And that is, we weren't taught a lot of things, or you didn't pay attention, or I looked at the 2000 election as this fun reason to have SNL content. I look at even the 90s. I know people are often harsh on some of the entertainers at the time, Leno and all of them, and I understand it. I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's like, hey, we made fun of Ito and Monica Lewinsky and the Ito dancers because that's what you did to the news. You poked it, and that's what the news was there for. And we weren't seeing the truth. And so I love learning the truth about things and opening my eyes and in all the different directions, right? That Timothy McVeigh was, not just reacting to Waco and the damn government encroaching on our grounds and our rights. He was part of a racist religious militia driven by hatred. You need to know that. But on the flip side is like going back to, I'm reading this book that is in 2000, 2001, 2002. The names are the same.
Mm-hmm.
People who are senators now or Congress people now were military leaders, right? And some people out there are like, yeah, I knew all the players. But it's not even like it's a connection anymore. It's like it's the same thing. They're still there, and you can see them building upon their cases that they now make now. That drives their legislation or their policies now, or what they try to get passed. And that's what I think. What we're talking about here is when you're saying no one screamed to the rooftop. I think it all was viewed as normal, and it stopped being normal, and then it ramped up with the Tea Party, and it ramped up to where we are. It's mind blowing sometimes to see it.
And I'm glad you mentioned the names thing, because that is another kind of reason why this has been so accessible and why it's been able to happen as easily as it has, because those same names, especially on the right, don't get me wrong, the left has plenty of this too, but especially on the right, a lot of those same names are like, they are so loyal for so long with so many, whether they're still senators or whether they're in the administration or whether they're in the intelligence community. Like, you don't see that at like the Republicans have been building that coalition since 9/11, since the Iraq-Afghanistan wars. Yeah. And you saw the progressive wing of politics try to build that after Obama. And then when they decided that they were going to anoint Hillary with it, it all kind of crumbled, in that you saw a part of the party actually go progressive with the Bernies and all those folks. Mm-hmm. And so now you don't have a strong team influence on the left the way you do on the right. The right is great at falling in line. The left isn't a fault, and that's kind of but they're proud of it in a sense, because that's kind of part of their party identity. Right. But it means they get their ass kicked all the time by the big bully on the block who's just getting, funded by his big brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So much. Anyways, fascinating, could go on, and I'm just happy to talk with you about it. And this is why we do this on Blathering Backstage. We wanted to maybe bring this up on the live show, but maybe it's a larger conversation. And maybe, we're not afraid to have serious conversations on the live show, of course, but we want to have the time to have them and just get the ideas out there. So good stuff. We can probably, I want to pull your string again. I'll just say liberal media, and then we'll see what you do on another episode and all that stuff. But I appreciate your journalism degree coming in handy here.
My bank account is proud for all those loans and on hard work my parents did to help get me through college. So at least it was good for something, Ken. At least it was good for something. Yeah.
And as always, we're not saying we're experts. We're just saying we're some folks in the world talking about things and getting it out there. And some of you might have thoughts. We understand that. Comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, listen on the podcast feed. Thanks for that, and we appreciate it. And we'll get on with life. Links down below for things that are important to us, including following Steve and following him over on Blathering Gaming, all the fun things we do there. And that's it. All right, cool. We said we'll go for 20 minutes, and we have gone for 45 minutes. That's it. We'll see you next time, folks.